reparations.
Yeah, sure, and then you pay them.
I don't think we need to pay reparations to anybody.
Well, I think I wouldn't say reparation. I would say like something in terms of like improving their material, like as Kobe laid out, I'm a big advocate of just like improving their material conditions, no
Native
matter the
Restoration Act or
cost.
something?
I'm not
Native
against
So if you mean reparations in the form of like massive investment to these communities,
That's what I mean.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
I'm
Yeah,
not
because
against
I always
reparations in cash necessarily, because I think that like technically they were promised these things at one point, so and their families were never given them for us to just keep saying like, hey, we'll give it to your schools instead and then you'll be much better off for it. Like, I think that's kind of a cop out, and I think it's kind of weaselly to keep from actually giving the reparations. But my issue, and maybe this is a weird thing, but I don't feel it's like I don't think that it's actually, I don't think we can actually put this into an application to where we can say like, well, African Americans, like, what is that? Are the, third generation Jamaicans also African Americans? And like, well, percentage of like your ancestry, whether or not it goes back to slavery, like, what if you're 25%? Like, I think that makes it impossible to actually apply these things.
Well, that's why I argue that for reparations for Africans, it's a global effort. Because what tends to happen is that like people think that like, oh, Americans only fucked Africans, and it's like, and then Spain's like, good. Keep peddling that. Just America's fault. It's America's fault. When in reality, like it's what sucks about it, because you see the arguments in practice, is that when you talk to Cubans about being African, they have a really uncomfortable relationship with acknowledging that their roots come to Africa, despite the fact that literally Spaniards brought African slaves over, taught them French, taught them Spanish, taught them all these good things, went into Cuba and was just like, like Cuba, Puerto Rico, what have you, and they basically were able to assimilate within there, but they brought slaves over there too. Like they brought slaves over to Mexico, and this is why like you look at the Caribbean and like there's such like deep African roots, but the minute you acknowledge that they're black, they get really uncomfortable. The question is, and that's where things I think are kind of fun, because like what does that representation look like in practice? Like what type of power do they have towards it? Because I think they should be able to. What's that?
They don't want it.
Right, but I think they should at least be given the option, no? Like,
wait, but aren't there like, I think like dozens of tribes? We give each tribe their own like representative. Like, how does that work?
They don't want it. Like,
well, I don't think it's fair to say just as like a blanket statement, because you spoke to a couple of them that they don't want it. Like, as a whole.
I've heard similar.
They're different tribes, but like most, as far as I got it from a representative of Indian tribes, you can speak with Universal Discourse. She has great insight, and she's
African countries together. They're gonna start like someone's gonna bring it up like China gave me a Ferrari. It's like, wait, what? And it's like, yeah, bro, it's in my front yard. They gave me a Prius. It's like, oh, sucks, bro. Should have negotiated better. And then they're gonna realize like, well, China gave me a Porsche.
Hello.
Hey yo.
Hey, what do you want to talk about?
I mean, dude, after the last conversation, I was really interested in the kind of stuff that you do. You were talking about taking down Nazis and stuff. You run I sounds like a big server on Discord.
Yeah, I run politics. It's just like discord.gg/politics. It has like, I think 36,000 people on it right now.
Wow.
I think it's still /debate server on Discord, if I remember correctly.
Okay. I just joined, let's see, Proaclin, or the Proaclin party or something like that. It's supposed to be a big debate server, but I can't seem to get a debate in there.
I've actually never heard of that one before. I mean, if you're looking for people to like talk to, I used to do this for Prime and Polar and a bunch of these streamer types, right? Where I would like make an announcement, they'd come on the server, they'd stream from the server, and I would just, just plenty of people on the server to debate. It's very active, like 24/7. I think like peak hours over 100 people in the voice channels all day. Slow hours, like right now, it's like 50-ish usually. I'll send you a link.
I'm very new to Discord. I'm a part of like maybe 4 or 5 Discords. Politics. Oh wow. 36,000 members.
Yeah, it is like I said, so far as I know, the largest and most active politics server on Discord / debate server on Discord. I'll give it a shrink. Yeah, you should be able to sell the channels, whatnot now.
Oh, nice. You guys have like voice channels and everything for people to just jump in and debate. See, one of the things I was looking for, there was like a ad on Vosh's Discord where they said like if you want to debate people on a consistent basis and you like stream or something, join this Discord, and they have a couple hundred people in there. So I joined, and I was talking to one of the mods, and I was like, hey, so I really want to debate somebody on whether or not Trump should have been removed from Twitter, because I see a lot of people upset about this. I feel like it should be pretty easy to find somebody. He's like, I'll debate you on it. I was like, really? He's like, yeah. I was like, all right, dude, 6 hours. I'll be on my stream and we'll be ready to go. He's like, all right, cool. 6 hours comes and I get on and I'm like, hey, you ready to go? He's like, nah, I got too high, man. I can't do this anymore. I was like, what? Like, you could have posted something to where I could have debated somebody else, but you took it yourself, and now I don't get to debate anybody. So I ended up on there with you guys instead. I guess it wasn't last night. I guess maybe it was 2 nights ago. Why?
Yeah, I mean, so you said you're new to Discord. Like, how new?
Man, maybe a month, maybe 2 months, something like that.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Same. There is a debate lord sphere of Discord, right? Where you have like the philosophy types that have like their little club. You have the vegans. You have
you say
the Christians. Well, philosophy nerds. I call them philosophy.
Oh, philosophy.
It's just like philosophy neat. You know what a neat is, right? It's like not employed or whatever the fuck. I can't remember the full terminology.
No,
it's just like it's just like a dig at philosophy students. But
I thought it was like
nerds,
one of those like those Destiny memes where they add the istony to the end of everything.
No, it's no. It's there's like a very like debatey side of Discord, right? If you go to those servers, you will find anyone debating, and my server is the largest one of those.
Okay.
Like I am basically like, I don't. This feels really like kind of cringy to say, but like on the debate side of Discord, quote unquote, like my server is kind of like the center. And then there are like these offshoots. The Christians have their own little thing. They have the little Muslim servers, but all of them come to my server to yell at each other, basically.
Awesome. That sounds great.
And the server is very, very like ideologically diverse. The mod team is very ideologically diverse. We have everything from like ethno-nats and fascists to anarcho-communists on the mod team. We allow as much as possible in terms of like ideology on the server. The only thing that I can allow is like just outright Nazis, and that's really just like Discord TOS. I don't allow that. But
Dr.
everything else,
K
like,
was saying that you have a bunch of Nazis on your server.
Dr. K is very loose with who she calls Nazis.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I mean, you're gonna find ethno-Nats on my server. They're just open like white nationalists.
See, I would love to like have those conversations with them, but I'm also like very nervous about like I feel as though I'm fully prepared for that conversation, but I've never actually had that conversation, and so I'm very iffy about actually getting into it with ethno-nationalists and alt-righters and all of them, just because I would love to do it. Like me personally, like just maybe I should do it like privately a couple of times before I actually stream it or something. But yeah, I would love to like actually have those conversations with them and be able to ask the questions that I would want to know and try to debunk it. But I'm not. I'm pretty
from my
historically
perspective, there are like
illiterate.
levels. No, that's okay. Like from my perspective, there are like levels to the ethno-nat argument, right? There's level 1, which is basically what Disco was doing, Disco Rat, which is the land belongs to the people, and these certain ethnic groups or indigenous groups have a like an ancestral tie to this land, so they should be able to say who lives on it and what the rules are and whatnot. That's like level 1 ethno-nat shit, right? Then you get to level 2, where they start talking about race. Race realism is what they call it, but I call it like racialism.
Yeah.
Where they would say that races are genetically distinct, right? It's just to like make the argument that if you have a black person and a white person, there are things in their genetics that makes them different. So race isn't just a social construct. Race is a biological reality, right? And part of that biological reality is are things like IQ levels. Right. There are things like they would say that black people have like a warrior gene and shit like that, right?
Yeah.
So that's like level 2, but that one you can get really extreme with. A lot of them will point to, look at these twin studies, and the black people have the lower IQ than the white people in these twin studies. But there are people who have devoted so much of their time to this that they will literally be talking like fucking PhD level genetics, right? It turns into like a massive rabbit hole, and they'll be tracing back. You'll be talking to them. They'll be going. They have like folders on their desktop, tracking the migration of different indigenous groups and ancient humans throughout the planet, to say that these are distinct from these, and this is a different kind of human. It is very intense.
You know who T Jump is?
Yeah, I know who Tom Jump is.
Okay, he recently had a debate with Vosh, and normally, like I feel like I was pretty prepared to have like a race realism debate until I watched T Jump and Vosh debate over like actual genetics, and I don't I don't know anything about like actual genetics. I have a guy in my what's it called, in my Twitch community. I got a very small Twitch community. I just got on there maybe 2 months ago as well. That's why I started on Discord, is because I added Twitch to one of my platforms. But I have a guy in there who is like a DNA expert, so maybe I need to get in with him and go over a bunch of stuff before that.
It's really rough. I think on my server, what I've noticed, right, because I've had like thousands of debates about everything, right? Like one thing that I do pretty commonly on my server is I will take up a position that I actually don't agree with. And between you and me, I actually do this on Prime Stream all the time. I'm not actually an authoritarian at all.
That was going to be my next question about why they call you authoritarian, but we'll get to that in a minute.
Well, okay. So one thing that I started doing years ago when I was like trying to explore who I am as a person, right? Like what my actual philosophy is I wanted to learn, just like some backstory. I grew up very Republican. My father was listening to Rush Limbaugh constantly. I was listening to all this. When I kind of got out on my own, I was watching Glenn Beck every day. I actually loved Glenn Beck, right? Mm-hmm. But At some point I made the switch to like it was the gay marriage issue for me that kind of did it, right? Where like there was like this contradiction in small government conservatism and whatnot, but hey, suddenly they're making theocracy arguments for why we need to restrict gay marriage, right? Oh, God said this. God said it's Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. So that kind of like really shook me because it didn't make any sense, right? I was always told, small government, all this whatnot from conservatives, and suddenly they're pushing like literally like Christian theocracy on people, from my perspective.
I mean, so I think the current argument now is like more of a libertarian one where they say government should not be involved in marriage whatsoever. And my pushback is always, well, aren't you happy that the government kind of supports a like the nuclear family by giving tax breaks to people who are married and then who have kids and so on and so on? Like, isn't that a good thing to where the government should have some sort of certificate that you have to prove that you are married so that you can get these benefits? And normally they're like, oh yeah, that is a good thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect like reasonable argument to have, like perspective to have. What didn't seem reasonable to me was at the time, a lot of the arguments that I was hearing weren't that. Like the argument that I heard from my father, from Sean Hannity, from a lot of these people were just like religious. I was outlined in the Bible that this was what it is, so this is what it should be. So that kind of shook me. And what I started doing was like, okay, well, if they're wrong about this, what else are they wrong about, right? Mm-hmm. So I started listening to like leftists. I started listening to the Young Turk, to Mike Malloy, I was reading like books and listening to like lectures and all this stuff, right, from all these different ideologies. And a lot of times it would really piss me off, right, because these were people telling me that everything I had learned was correct, was incorrect, right? And that can be really like, that can really shake you, right? Because sometimes I was able to dismiss it and make arguments against it in my own head. Like, oh, no, that's not true. But then other times I wasn't able to do that. And they were right. And it bothered me that they were right because I had always been told that these people were insane. So over like years, I started listening to everybody. I would do my best to, whenever some kind of issue popped up, I would look into the communist perspective, the anarchist perspective, the fascist perspective, the Christian perspective, and try to like understand what everybody believed and why they believed it, so I can make some kind of sense as to why these people thought this way.
Yeah.
And over time, I got pretty good at like regurgitating a lot of these arguments, right? Because I have like a pretty firm grasp of them. I think so. Something I do on my server is I will LARP as a Luciferian, or as an atheist, or as a Catholic, right, or as a Muslim, just to like challenge people, because that's basically what my server is about. It's I encourage people to go on there, present their beliefs, and have them challenged from all sides, right? So anytime there's a voice channel and everybody's kind of agreeing, if I'm in there, I will take the opposite position, right? Just to like force them to like think a little deeper.
Yeah, I do a lot of the same things.
What I've noticed over the years is like people kind of specialize, right? So they'll, if they're really like into Christianity or like religion or something, they'll do like the transcendental argument for God, and they'll get really, really, really good at it, right? And they'll just have that debate over and over and over again in like 50 different ways. People who are race realists do the same thing. People who are into like transgenderism do the same thing, right? So I think like maybe it can be useful if you just want to like learn the position to like have those discussions with people on both sides. But I don't know like how useful it is to like focus too much, unless you just want to be having the race realism argument all the time, because to get really deep into that, that's going to take a lot of work because there's a lot to that argument.
Here, I'm going to mute my stream for just a second. Lives Matter or Antifa or things like that, like they'll start diving into these talking points. And I feel as though if I could actually like debate white nationalists and tear down that argument, they could see that they're using the same arguments as them. And like it would kind of tear down their entire thought process in those matters. So it's kind of like a personal thing for me within my community to try to get done.
That makes sense. Yeah, I think that the way to do that is you would probably need to sit in and listen to some of these debates, right? Like listen to some of the talking points.
I mean, I've listened to Destiny do it 100 times. That's why I thought I could do it. But then, like, I'm in like a couple Facebook groups, and there's one called Debunking Alt-Right Talking Points. That's the name of the group. But it's being taken over by Nazis. Like, it's filled up with Nazis. Ironic. And they're not booting these people. So, like, it started off as a community of like moms and family members and friends who like had people around them who were alt-right, and they just wanted to kind of like learn these talking points and then learn how to debunk them or tear them down. And it's now been taken over by a bunch of Nazis. And every time somebody posts something, it like the comments just get flooded with all of these Nazis. And somebody posted something today about like, you know, let's tell it like it is and start calling all these people who rushed the Capitol Nazis. And like, I don't agree with that, but then they start flooding the comments with, well, what's a Nazi? How do you think these people are from, 1940s Germany?
Oh,
and
yeah.
Do you think they're National Socialists? And do you think that they're part of the Nazi party? Do you even know what Nazi means? And so like, I start getting into these like semantic arguments with these guys on whether or not we can use the word Nazi to refer to white supremacists. And like, I get into these debates with them all the time, but it's normally like very small, stupid stuff. Whereas I feel like in like an actual voice head-to-head debate, like it would get a lot deeper than that. So
yeah, I mean, if you want to debate like a race realist or like a white nationalist, I could definitely set it up for you. I would probably avoid setting you up with like one of the really intense genetics people.
Yeah.
Just because to have those debates, you need to have like very specialized knowledge.
Yeah.
Right. Otherwise, they're going to make you look wrong, even if you're not. Like that's a problem that we ran into with. I think you were there when I mentioned the Nazi wizards, quote unquote.
Yeah.
That would come on and like do Holocaust denial.
Yeah.
They knew every single talking point, right? Every single like fucking niche argument against the Holocaust, right? So if you weren't prepared, if you didn't know what you're talking about, they would make you look stupid, even if they're wrong.
Yeah.
Right. I literally had to create a pin in the server, like a pin message in the server with primary source documents, common arguments like that, things that debunk those arguments, a bunch of links for the mod team, so they knew, okay, if these people come on, like you can reference this. Right? Like, here's everything you need to have this debate, right? So like I'm sure like even if we're to put like the average lefty, right, against some of the people, some of the actual Nazis on Discord that do Holocaust denial, they would make the lefties look stupid.
Yeah.
Right. You would come away with like people thinking the Holocaust didn't happen.
Yeah, these people didn't build these ideologies like in a vacuum. Like they probably questioned a lot of these things and were able to reinforce them over and over and over to where you're not going to be able to just come in and say a couple of things and it's all over.
Yeah, I mean, because one thing that I've noticed about like right-wing radical types is that they're actually very open to debate and discussion. Right? They actually want to have debates. And the thing that I've noticed with like a lot of left-wingers is they don't. Right? They don't want to engage. They would rather just push these people away, put them in a corner somewhere, and not talk to them. But when they actually like run into these people, they end up looking stupid because they just are not prepared for the argument because they've never had it before.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I don't know. I think this echo chamber shit that happens is really harmful.
Yep. I would love to do it sometime, and probably, like I said, probably try a couple off stream at first, but it's not as if like normally I have these debates with them, but they're normally online to where one of us they're normally like in text to where one of us eventually just gets tired of it and just disappears. And in my experience, when I argue with Nazis, they're really bad at debating. Like they don't understand how to stay on topic. They have to pivot nonstop.
Yeah.
They normally have like talking points to where no matter what I say, they're going to hit their dialogue tree no matter what and just start rambling off a bunch of stuff. They have to gish gallop. They have to there's all of these tactics that I don't even think they know they're doing, because if they knew they were doing it, then they would just be like, they would be faking these beliefs, but they're not faking their beliefs. It's just, this is how they've learned to debate these things. These are the tactics that they've learned to use. And I was the same when I was a conservative. Like I learned the talking points that I was supposed to say, and no matter what the other person said, I was able to come up with something to put out there, but it wasn't necessarily on topic, and I didn't know that I was doing it. Like I didn't even know that I was that bad at having these debates, because I just knew at the time I was just trying to hit the right talking points and make sure that I said the right things. So I think that that's the case for most of the alt-writers in my experience, is they're not actually good at debating. They have to pivot nonstop in order to continue the conversation.
Yeah, I think so. So I think what would help you out, because if you're going to be on, I don't know how long you've been doing panels and debates and in voice chat, because I think it's a much different animal, right? Voice chat debates versus text chat debates. Yes. In text chat you can kind of plan out what you're going to say, you can maybe find links and yada yada. With voice chat it's right there in the moment. So I think that the best way to get better at that is just practice.
Yeah.
So what I would encourage you to do is maybe hang out on, it doesn't need to be my server, right? But some group where you can debate people off stream. Just maybe just sit in and just have these conversations, right? About whatever. So you get used to a lot of the common talking points. And I think my server is really good for that because it's very ideologically diverse. So you're going to run into everything there. But there, like I said, there's a debate sphere on Discord that I could direct you to. Right, my server is just the hub there.
I mean, should I make a different name for trying to find Nazis to debate? Should I have a separate?
Do you want
Discord
full on Nazis,
profile?
Or do you want
more just alt-writers?
Oh, well, yeah, you don't need to. I mean, there are alt-writers on my server. We don't ban them. We only my server is very. This is why people think it's a Nazi server, right? If you ask Vivian or Dr. K, she'll say that these Nazis are on the server, but it's because there are alt-writers on the server. It's not the majority of the server at all. It's actually a pretty small portion of the server. The server is very, very ideologically diverse, but we do allow them there, right? So long as they don't post swastikas and whatnot, they're allowed on the server. Okay. So you will go into a voice channel, and it's pretty easy to find race and IQ discussions. Pretty easy to find ethno-satires. It's not, you can find Holocaust deniers on there all over the place. They're on there all day.
Okay. So with the authoritarian stuff, because I think it was you the other day who asked me, because you were aren't you the authoritarian Christian who defends slavery?
Yeah, I'd heard you were from, I forget who.
I assumed it was Prime. Prime was the one who got really upset. When I was on his channel, literally all I did was just mention that I was a Christian, and it was Prime who immediately jumped in and starts kind of jumping down my throat and is well, what about the Bible? Do you believe in the Bible? I'm like, yeah, I believe in the Bible. Okay, well, what about this verse? What about this one? What about that one? And so and I've had that conversation numerous times. Like if you go to my website, tomfoolerypc.com, it's literally the very like first video on there is called Slapping Butts and Breastfeeding. And it's like at the end of this video, we have like a long conversation about whether or not someone could consent to slavery. And Prime's entire thing was you can't consent to something like that. And I kept saying, well, why not though? Like we just talked about how like Google can take away your privacy, and like no matter what examples I gave, like, you know, we agree that like boxers can beat the crap out of you. Like we allow you to like give away all sorts of rights that to where like slavery would almost culminate all of these into one that you would be able to consent to. And no matter what example I gave, I couldn't get halfway through my sentence before he's like, no, it is not the same. And if you don't know that it's not the same, then we can't have this conversation. And I'm like, well, I'm literally just asking a question though. Like I'm trying to understand where you draw these lines. He's like, no. If you don't understand this, then we can't have this conversation. And so I
really hate it when people do that.
Yeah. So I hit the mute button and I just sat back and just stopped. I was like, okay, like he's not.
Okay. Well, the problem with, I think with like Prime, and Joe does this all the fucking time. It drives me insane. Prime just like gets really emotional, right? So it's not even like he says, oh, maybe we should talk about this later. Oh, we're not really, you're not really qualified to talk about this. It's literally he gets emotional and he starts yelling, and he just tries to shut down the conversation, right? And I think that like and Joe does this constantly too, where he will gatekeep. Oh, well, you know, you don't really have the educational background to talk about this. And black people are tired. And, you know, we're tired of educating white people. First of all, I'm not even white, right? Like I'm like 30% indigenous. I'm like Hispanic as fuck, right? Like, I'm not white. So they do this thing where they assume that you're white if you disagree, and then they will say, oh, you know, black people are tired of educating and marginalized people and yada yada. They act like they speak for all non-white people on the planet, and they would just try to shut down the conversation, pretend that you're not qualified to talk about it, and they just don't have the time to educate you and move on. All right, this stuff's bullshit. I think if you actually like honestly look at the American slave trade, right, the North Atlantic slave trade, it's not at all dissimilar from what the Barbary pirates did, what the Arabs did, what the fucking Aztecs did, right? What the Mayans did.
Though, like I for the most part took your side, but isn't that whataboutism though, to say that like they did it, but like so now we shouldn't have to like pay reparations?
Well, that wasn't the point. No, that's not the point I was making. The issue that I had with what they were saying is they were speaking as if this was a uniquely American thing. What America did was uniquely evil, as if America has these problems and other countries don't. And that's just not true.
I guess you're right, because that did kind of diverge off of American exceptionalism. So
right,
yeah.
So that's what bothers me. They pretend this is like a uniquely American problem, and America had slavery, this original sin, and blah blah. But this slavery existed all over the planet. In fact, ironically, they were shitting on the UK a lot. It was the imperialism of the United Kingdom that ended slavery in most of the world, right? That because they either stopped doing trade with nations if they had slaves, or they would raid ports, right? And if they encountered slave ships, they would take them over and free the slaves, right? So ironically, the might of like the United Kingdom's navy, right, going around trying to enforce this abolition on people is what ended slavery in most of the world. So I don't know. It feels like when they have that conversation, because they're emotionally attached to American slavery, because they're black, they just don't look at it honestly. I don't think, and I think a lot of leftists do this, right? Like white leftists do this, I think, because they feel guilty, because they want to feel like they want to be able to put on virtue pin. I've this poor marginalized people, and I'm a white person. I'm gonna shut up and stand back and let them grieve or whatever the fuck.
Yeah,
and it just comes off as like really dishonest when we're discussing these topics.
Yep. Yeah, I personally in that last conversation felt like they were avoiding the questions that I was asking. Like I think at 2 different points I asked them to draw a line on whatever it was they were talking about, and both times Joe was the one who jumped in and goes off on this diatribe of like I don't feel like it was related whatsoever, where it's just like a history lesson. I'm like, I'm asking like a philosophical question here, and you're giving me a history lesson. Like I think I asked at one point, like, if you think it's okay for some people to have ethno states, but not white people or not alt-righters, like then where is it in between those two that you draw the line? And then I think I asked the same thing with like reparations. Like if we're going to give African Americans reparations for slavery, like I agree we're supposed to do that, but it's been so long to where they're all like so diverse now, and we've had so much interbreeding to where like what percentage of their heritage has to come from people who were in slavery. And again, neither one of those came anywhere close to being attempted to being answered. Like neither one came anywhere close.
Yeah, I mean, if you notice, Joe did the same thing when I brought up the Vikings, right? When I was saying, well, look, hey, there are plenty of examples of things that happened in the past that are now softened, and now where people joke about and wears costumes, and they talk about raping and pillaging as if it wasn't, if it wasn't like a brutal, disgusting thing that the Vikings did, right? And people were wearing Viking costumes with the fucking horn helmets. So, like rather than respond to that, he tried to say, oh, you don't really have the educational background to talk about this. Oh, you don't have the historical leg to stand on. But it's just not true. Like the Vikings aren't the only example. There are tons of examples of this throughout history, right? So I don't know. It just feels like anytime you try to have these conversations with them, Joe does this a lot. It really bothers me because I've noticed it a lot. He does this weird gatekeeping thing, tries to move out of the conversation to some other not even related topic, and tries to like move on. Right? Like it's really gross.
I've never been on a panel with Joe before tonight. I've seen him. Whose was it? On Dylan Burns' like roundtable before. I felt the same way when I watched him on there, is that as though like he wasn't actually answering questions, and he was just kind of like each time. And maybe I'm just not smart enough to understand. Maybe like that's a possibility. But in my mind, like he would go off on these tangents of like this super intellectual, historical, just rambling, where it seemed to have nothing to do with what anybody else was talking about.
Yes. I don't think it's because you're not intelligent to have these conversations. I think it's because it was like gobbledygook meant to like distract the conversation and pull it away into something he wanted to talk about, because he didn't want to answer the question directly, which is what I usually see from Joe.
Again, I've never talked to him before, so I don't want to make like too many assumptions.
Right.
But
no, I understand, but it's not even like just Joe, right? Like it's something that's pretty common. Like with the ethnostate thing that I brought up, like, hey, we're talking about indigenous people and how do we help them? And how do we stop discrimination and racism and whatnot? And they were literally like advocating for giving these people ethnostates, right? So I bring that up, and rather than address that, they start talking about, oh, well, indigenous people don't want this help, and no, they don't want this, but they refuse to address the fact. I got Disco Rat to like bite down by the bullet, but the rest refuse to like address acknowledge the fact that they're literally arguing for ethnocides, right? Which is really gross, actually.
Who does he remind me of? I can't put what's the guy's name. There's somebody, he sounds exactly like a Twitch streamer, and I know it's not him because Discord Rat's like a lot smarter than this guy. Crap, dude, I can't think of his name.
Yeah, I don't know. But Discord Rat, just like, he struck me as one of those people I spoke about. You know, they're white and they feel like that's bad because, you know, the white people hurt these poor indigenous people all over the planet and blah, blah, and marginalized people. But like, it just comes off as really lazy virtue signaling.
Well, I guess to get an idea, like exactly where you're coming from, like, do you believe in like systemic racism? Is that a thing?
Yeah, but I don't think it's like, I don't think the systemic racism is as pervasive as a lot of people make it out to be. I think that a lot of it is more complicated than just race, right? I don't think that like people by and large are racist.
Well, normally systemic racism doesn't have much to do with people actually being racist. It just has to do with like historical and systemic paths that just kind of lead them to be in the position that they're in. And I know lots of people will take like a very like economic, you know, sort of thought process to this and just say like, oh, you know, it's all just classism or something like that. But I think that there's a lot more to it, and I do think that a lot of people pile on a lot of things like into the systemic racism category that just don't belong there. But I do believe in it, and I think it, like I've you know just recently kind of come around to actually understanding it. And I feel like in the right-wing circles that I listen to, they always kind of strawmanned what systemic racism was to where it was impossible to ever believe it because you never actually understood what it was. But once I actually understood what it was, then I definitely believed in it. Well,
I think we can acknowledge that certain racial groups in this country are at a disadvantage because of generational discrimination. Okay? Going back to slavery, going back before slavery, right, with like the indigenous people. But I don't think that the way you fix those issues is to focus on race, right, or race relations. I think the way that you fix those issues and a lot of the stereotyping and the prejudices that lead to, you know, to like what's the word I'm looking for? For example, the sort of prejudice that leads to Black people being given 20% longer prison sentences for the same crime, right? That's probably, but part of that, I don't know if I can say all of it, but part of that is probably some kind of prejudice in the judge themselves, right? Like it's older men and women who grew up with certain views on race or whatever, and they're seeing a certain person come in, a certain type of person come into their courtroom a lot, and there might be some bias there, right? Sure. But I think the way that you deal with that is you address the material conditions that are leading to African Americans actually committing more crime, right? Actually committing more violent crime, right? So because I think that's the reason a lot of people have these kind of stereotypes and these kind of prejudices. And I just think that too much attention is given to race and to like race divisions. And I think that that's actually like counterproductive. I think that actually leads to more racism.
I mean, I don't think anybody would disagree with that, though. Like the whole point in having the conversation about systemic racism is to try to find the root cause of where all of this comes from and then trying to fix that, right?
Yeah. But what I have a problem with is when people say that, oh, you know, who was it? It was, I think, No Comment Chick today. It says something about racism in terms of like, oh, these police officers see Trump supporters and they feel like it's their brother or something, and they see BLM protesters and it's like, oh, it's black and brown bodies, so they don't matter as much, so you can shoot them with rubber bullets. I think that sort of thinking, right, is really, really counterproductive. And I see that a lot from leftists, because I think that, like, in some ways, acknowledging race, acknowledging like this kind of racial divide that exists, and with that kind of language, actually just drives it in deeper. So when I think of like how to address problems in the Black community or the Hispanic community or Indigenous community, what I try to do, right, is just totally take race out of the equation. Say, hey, these are people, these are their problems, these are the material conditions that seem to be leading to these problems, so we should address those, right? And I think that once you do that, and once the material conditions that are leading these people to behaving in a way that leads to people having these kind of negative stereotypes are corrected, then the racism will kind of sort itself out.
But when you say material conditions, like, so when I talk about these things, I'm normally worried about it more on like a social level. So like if we look at the amount of Black children who grow up in single parent households, like the statistics show that, like, and I guess this is kind of a correlation equals causation sort of argument, but statistics show that they're more likely to commit crimes if they grow up in a single parent household. And so normally I think like issues like that, and not even just as simple as just the single parent household, but lots of times you can look at like white kids who grow up in the suburbs where there's lots of dads who just happen to be around, or they have or they have like, male role models on the football team or on the basketball team, or just like having male role models around. They end up growing up differently than somebody who grows up in a Black community with very little father figures around. And then they're more likely to not graduate high school, to go to jail numerous times, to have trouble keeping a stable job. They're less likely to have they're more likely to have kids in a single parent household as well, just to continue the cycle. So like normally I focus on like social issues like that are going to hopefully fix the problem.
Yeah, I'd also agree with that. I think that there's a lot of enabling that happens, right? Where we will say, oh, well, these people are having sex without a condom, and they're having a bunch of kids, and then they can't support those kids, and then the guy who got the girl pregnant runs off, and now she's left with a kid, and she's getting welfare, but that's not enough, so she needs to like work. And so the kid just ends up on the streets running around because she can't take care of him and the family's not looking after him. I think that like there's a lot of enabling that happens where people kind of like dismiss that and say that this is like a totally race issue and that there aren't any problems with the culture. And I wouldn't call it like Black culture, because that's a problem that exists in poor communities of every color. Right. So right. It's just, I think we see it more in Black people because they're dealing with like generational discrimination that leads to them more likely, being more likely to be poor. But I think there again, the root cause is the poverty. Schools not educating people well enough to in like sex ed. Hey, don't have sex without a condom. Hey, the pull-out method doesn't work. Right, like not having enough resources to like get abortions and whatnot. So I don't know. I just feel like there are a lot of there is some truth to like the conservative talking points, but I think it's like there's truth on the other side too. A lot of these communities don't have access to a lot of programs that they need to support them. I mean, I grew up in one of these communities. Right? I grew up like in the fucking ghetto ass East LA. And my family was very similar.
I did too. I grew up in New York.
Yeah, so I mean, I saw it, right? I was lucky enough to have my father in the home. He was 22 when he got my mother pregnant at 16. So that's a little awkward. But they sit together, and he was working. But I saw a lot of other kids who had fathers who didn't do that, who were in and out, who, the mother had like 2 kids from 2 different guys, and neither of them are around, so she was looking for another guy. And it was just like a lot of these kids end up on the street, and I ended up on the street a lot with my cousins because we just didn't have adults around to watch us all the time because everybody's working. And I mean, it's really easy to fall into like the fucking gang member lifestyle, into drugs and all this kind of shit. And a lot of my family did, a lot of my friends did, a lot of my friends died. So I don't know. I think there are a lot of issues, but I don't think. I just think there's too much focus on race as like one of those issues.
Well,
I think that we're kind of like we're focused on that because people feel guilty about slavery and whatnot, and it's like the focus on that is actually dividing people, making it harder to address the root problems.
I mean, I personally don't think I'm focused on it because of slavery, but I think that Black people are in a bit of a different situation because it seems as though they're like, yeah, we can look at kids in trailer parks and white kids who are poor everywhere, and for the most part they have the same issues. It just seems as though the difference is that they don't have those issues because of the color of their skin. And it seems as though Black people do have those issues, and they are put into that position because of the color of their skin or because of the color of their ancestors' skin. And that's why I think it's important to pay attention to the race aspect of it, because they're disproportionately affected by this. And if we could at least get them to a point to where it was proportionate, then it wouldn't seem like such a big issue anymore. Like everything else would fall in line.
Yeah, I can agree with that. And I mean, to be clear, I'm going to say that we should just we shouldn't acknowledge that they're in this position because of generational discrimination and oppression. But I think once you acknowledge it, right, you just kind of set it off to the side, and then you start dealing with the actual the things that exist right now that are leading to these conditions. I don't think race is a massive part of that.
Okay. I have a whole podcast on this where it is funny because I'm the conservative debating the systemic racism position, and he is a liberal debating pretty much the same position as you, actually, is that he believes in systemic racism. He just doesn't believe that it's as big of a contributing factor as people make it out to be. He'll look at things like them getting arrested at a higher rate and say them having prison sentences that are longer, and he'll say I think one of the problems is that because they're poor, they're not able to afford a lawyer, and therefore they're going to get these court-appointed lawyers, and then therefore are they going to end up in jail longer. And he's then it's not a race issue anymore. Now it's an economic factor. And I have to go back again and be yeah, but the economic factor again is because of systemic racism.
Yeah, I think you can acknowledge it and then move on. I don't think it makes sense to just pretend that they're not in this position because of their race, right? Because of their ancestors' race, and because of the way that people treated their ancestors. Like, obviously, that's the case.
Okay. Yeah, it's an interesting podcast. I honestly, the podcast is by far my biggest platform. Like, I'll get hundreds of downloads a day still now, and I haven't put anything up for like 3 or 4 months. And
wow, it's pretty good.
On like my YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook, like I'll maybe get like a couple hundred views a day across all 3 platforms. Like not on each platform, like across all 3.
Yeah,
it might add up to a couple hundred. So I need to be focusing on the podcast, but I don't. I enjoy this a lot more.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So do you do any streaming or anything like that?
No, I don't. The only sort of thing I do is just like Discord shit. But I've been doing Discord shit for like 3 years now.
And how many shows do you go on to?
Actually, just primes. I get pestered to like go on people's shows sometimes to do like interviews with podcast people and whatnot. Because a lot of people, for some reason, are like really interested in like how the Discord server came together and how it all kind of developed. And I guess it's an interesting story. And there's like a lot of crazy shit that happens, right? So I have like tons of weird stories about stuff that I've seen dealing with that community. But I like I try to avoid getting too personal because I do have like a business, like in the real world, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And I have employees, and I have investors, and I have like a lot of people that are counting on me, right? So like I can't become like, oh, that political guy that's putting his face out there and his name out there and having all these debates about shit. Because all it really takes is someone to like track me down and then go on my Yelp page and say, oh, this person hates indigenous people and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And it would just cause a massive problem. So
yeah, I run a business as well, and I was super worried about this when I first started. But over time, like I guess I realized most people don't really care about politics as much as it seems like they do online. Like people online care a lot, but in the real world, nobody really cares. Like,
right.
I guess.
Yeah, I can understand that. I guess because people have been trying to dox me for like 3 or 4 years now. Not like normal people, like like Nazis or like.
I remember you telling the story about the British people the other day. Or I guess
let me show you. Okay, let me show you a DM that I got.
Okay,
like just a week or 2 ago. This is the sort of stuff that I got.
oh, my bad. I was on the wrong thing. All right. Hello. You think it's safe to make racist, pro-fascist, sexist, Islamophobic, and anti-Semitic comments behind a screen from your home, you pathetic, shitty troll? Have been tracking you for a long time through your IP and are on the verge of identifying who you are, including your name and where you live. Once your identity is determined, your racist hate speech and comments will be attached to your name and posted and will be sent to any employers or schools you attend to let them know of your hate speech online. Honestly, the way I see it, it's only a matter of time. Dang, dude. You said
and like I've been getting like, oh god.
You said you should resend them. The "we gonna get you" messages are less impactful if it's clear you're having trouble forming them or thinking the words, type them. Oh, well, trust me, I have no trouble with the message. If anything, I feel sorry for you that the internet wasted so much of your life and time that could have been spent elsewhere. Yeah, when I read the top part, I'm thinking if they were really on the verge, they wouldn't be sending you a message right now telling you. Like,
yeah, a lot of it is just like scare tactics, but I've just like dealt with that a lot. And I actually was doxxed once, a very long time ago, when I first got on Discord. And luckily, all they did was literally send me it was like elephant shit or something, like actual like a box of elephant shit in the mail. I guess there's like a service that does that.
What?
So that was fine, right? Like I wasn't like really a big presence. I was just fucking with some Nazi guys, pissing them off. So they doxed me because I wasn't careful about my information, and it was on another username, and they found me because I was using the same username everywhere, and they were able to find my address, right? So I don't know. I'm very like iffy about that shit because the kind of people that I deal with on politics are. I deal with a lot of crazy ass people, right? Like over the years, people who are like legitimately, I think, dangerous. And I don't want to have to worry about like some weirdo showing up at my office and shooting me or something.
Yeah, that's crazy. So it is like the stuff that they're getting mad about. Is this you like attempting to debate from another position, or like why do they feel you're so racist and Islamophobic and all of that other stuff?
I actually had a very long conversation with this person. I don't know if very long, like for like an hour. I spoke to him, and it turned out the thing that this person was upset about is I was on another server that I admin on called Kelly Open Club, which is like a nerd server, right? It's like an educational server, quote unquote. And I was attacking Judaism, Christianity, and Islam at the same time, right? From a Luciferian perspective, right? A Luciferian is someone not like an atheist, but like someone who believes that the Bible is true, believes that the God of the Bible exists, but believes that Lucifer is actually like the savior of mankind, basically, right? And it's like a guide, and that the Christian God is evil. And because the Christian God in Judaism, the God in Islam are all kind of the same God. I was attacking all three religions at the same time. And this person was really upset about this, about me, making fun of their God or whatever, and that's why they started calling me a racist and Islamophobic and yada yada. So I'm not a racist, right? So like I don't even ever pretend to be a racist. I think the one time I did do that wasn't racist. It was Holocaust denial. I wanted to see if there were it was in like a voice channel of like 30 people on my server, and this was like probably like a year ago, and someone brought up the Holocaust, right? And everyone seemed on board with the Holocaust was real. So I wanted to see if I could debate them into submission, basically, and I did. Right? Like even the guy was correct, but I was able to like pick out little shit in what he said that was incorrect, that he like misspoke or misremembered, and make it look like he didn't know what the fuck he was talking about. Right? And then I did that for like 40 minutes. Asked if anybody else had anything to say. Nobody said anything. So then I told them they're all stupid for believing me for a second, because everything that I was saying is easily debunkable. Here's how you debunk it. This is why I was wrong. This is why this doesn't make any sense. Right? And I went on for like an hour walking them through why everything I said was incorrect.
That's funny. Like I do stuff like that, but not like you're more like trolling when you do that. Like I debate from opposite positions when I start to wonder if maybe I'm wrong about something, opposite position, and start to debate that with people to see if I can continue to justify that belief,
right?
Or if I can make them who holds my current position, if I can make them look stupid, or if I can.
It's more of like a devil's advocate kind of thing.
Yeah.
I do that too, but I think primarily what I try to do is force people to. I try to like I feel like everybody has a golden cows, right? In terms of like just beliefs or positions that they just believe, they think are true, and they never challenge these things, right? Like one really common thing with conservatives is democracy. Not just conservatives, like just Americans in general. It's like democracy and the support of democracy. It's very, very rare, I found, for people to like be ready to defend their belief in democracy.
Right.
So I will take like an anti-democratic position and tell them that democracy is bad, right? And why we shouldn't have democracy, and why it's actually cruel to have democracy, and it's immoral, and blah blah blah. And it's actually pretty rare for someone to be able to like defend their belief in democracy, even if it's like a core thing that they believe in as part of their like political philosophy, right? So like that's what I try to do. I feel like people have golden cows, and I do my best to like challenge them, like constantly.
Yeah. I the point in my entire show is that like that people hold positions that they don't really think too much about, and then they just go the rest of their lives believing it without really thinking about it. So the motto of our show is challenge your thoughts, and we try to like get into all sorts of stuff in it. Like lots of people think like I'm just trying to be an edgelord or something, and I'm really not. Like I want to see like what we can tear down and what we can continue to hold up and stuff like that. And I get into like pedophilia a lot, or religious beliefs, or you know, all sorts of things, to where I pretty quickly lose followers and subscribers.
Right.
So yeah, do you know Kay Fellows? She goes on Prime Show a lot.
I don't think so. Sounds familiar, but I can't put a name to her or put a face to her.
She does the all-female debates. Or sorry, not debates. She does the all-female, whatever.
Like the panels?
Yeah, the all-female panel, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, so she goes on there with Jane the Message. And
yeah, I know her.
When I got into the abortion debate, I got into it with Jane the Message and Josen. I mean, it was like 10 people, but they were 2 of the 10. And then later, like I did like a debate review on my show a couple days later and started going over this stuff. And Jane pops up in my chat and is like, "Hey, can I like come defend myself?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, come on." So she comes on. Me and Kay, like Kay's my co-host on my shows, so so me and Kay are on there, and Jane pops on, and I guess she sent the invite to Josen as well, so he just randomly pops on as well. And so we talk and we have a good discussion, and like me and Josen get into like a deep philosophical conversation about like what is personhood, and it went really well, and I like clipped some of it and turned it into separate YouTube videos. And then they both got really upset when they found out that I was streaming on YouTube and that I cut those videos up into separate videos and put those on YouTube. And they started telling me I had to take down all of the content that they were in, including the live streams. And I was like, okay, like I'm at a wedding right now. Like I hold the position that like if somebody asks me to take something down, I'll take it down. I think this is really unfair. You guys asked to come on to my show. Like I didn't invite you on. And now they were saying stuff like I should have them sign waivers and all sorts of bull crap. Like they were. So anyways, so I tell them like, look, I'm at a wedding in 2 days. I'll get back home and I will either like blur your faces and edit out your voices, or I'll just take the videos down altogether. But I promise you one way or the other, I want to make sure that you're happy with the content. But then I like explained, I was like, but just to let you know, like there's over 30 hours of work in these 4 videos that you're asking me to take down. And I work really hard on these things. And I just feel like it's really unfair that you asked to come on my show. I was cordial. I promoted you guys. I put your links on my stuff. Like I I was very hospitable to you guys, and you guys turn around and make sure that I regret that. And I feel like this is just really unprofessional. This isn't how this normally works. But again, I'll take it down. They both block me and then report my videos to YouTube and have them taken down.
That's really fucked up.
Yeah. So I went back
that's not cool.
and appealed those and had the videos put back up and then made an entire video just explaining to everybody like, hey, this is what Jane and Josen did. So just putting it out there. Like I was on another show when they kept asking me about it and what happened. And so we start the thing off like, hey, listen, we're going to explain this. You guys know who these people are. You all saw the videos. You saw the live streams. But if any of you go into their chat rooms and start like bugging them about this or harassing them or trolling them, like you guys will be banned from every single one of our shows immediately. Like I was on a panel show with like 5 other streamers on there as well. So, like we tried to handle it as responsibly as possible, but at the same time, like I was pissed. So I was ready to like get the word out there. Like, yo, this is what these fools did. And since then, neither one of them have gone back on the Prime show.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. They've both been kind of AWOL. Kate messaged me today, said they both blocked her on Twitter and Twitch and pretty much everywhere else. They blocked me everywhere. So I don't know. I mean, I feel bad. I didn't want to mess up like Prime's relationship with them or anything.
I feel like people like that are just kind of toxic to have in these kind of like discussion communities, you know?
Maybe so when I jumped into that, when it turned into an abortion debate, and I didn't mean for it to, I didn't mean to hijack the conversation. Like truly, I wasn't trying to have a conversation about abortion at all. Like nobody would be like, hey, I'm the only person out of the 10 people here who believes abortion is wrong. Why don't I debate all 10 of you right now? Like nobody would do that. So I wasn't like purposefully changing the subject. I just happened to mention that Jane had been in my YouTube comments arguing with me about abortion. And then I just happened to run into her. I'd never met her. I didn't know who she was. And I just happened to run into her on Prime's channel. And, but they were in the middle of a conversation about autism and about like the struggles that they have in life and online and things like that because of their autism. And so I definitely think that probably plays a factor into this and in how they deal with this situation. So
yeah, no, that makes sense. I don't know. I feel that like I mean, this is probably like kind of mean, but I feel like there are a lot of people in these kind of discussion communities that use their mental illnesses as like weapons against other people.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah, so I feel weird about like just forgiving them because they happen to have like autism or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, I mean, I guess because even to a point, forgiving them because of their autism, I'm sure somebody would make the case that that's even like ableism or something. Like I'm looking at them as if they're not capable of dealing with situations like a rational person. So I don't know. Like it can definitely be weaponized. It's just hard to tell when that's the case and when it's not. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I just felt like the whole thing was bad faith. And even like the whole abortion debate that I had with them initially, that entire thing was definitely had in bad faith. Like that was all just an entire train wreck. So I don't know. It's disappointing. I like one of my favorite parts of streaming is like meeting other streamers and having them on my show and going on their shows. And like, I enjoy finding people who are willing to have these sorts of conversations with me. Cause most people who are willing to go online at all and put their faces out there are all like extremely concerned about getting canceled at any point. And so they like veer away from literally all of the conversations that I have on my channel. So when I find people who are willing to have those conversations, I like to keep those connections.
Yeah, I think it's really important. So like I said, if you want to set up like debates or something, I can definitely get that set up on my server. You just let me know what kind of debate you're looking for, and I can, whatever it is, I promise I can find it. I have people from like every ideological persuasion on the server. But actually, I do need to go to bed. It's like 2:42 a.m.
Yeah, it's 5:45 a.m. here.
Yeah.
Where do you live? Or
I'm in California.
Okay, California. I'm in Atlanta, so I get off work, I close and work really late, and then I get on here and stream for a little, or at least that's what I've been doing for the last week. But I appreciate it, dude. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate the offer. I definitely enjoy debates. I will debate just about anything. So I'm definitely going to be in touch with you to work something out.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, well, let me know what you want to debate, like what kind of topic you're interested in. It doesn't need to be like an event. We can do an event if you want to. If you have something like you really like feel comfortable debating, I'll shout you out on the server. We'll make a room for you where people can come and listen. It'd be like a one-on-one kind of thing. Like we can definitely do that if that's what you're interested in. If you just want to like come around and have like casual discussions with people, I mean, obviously you're more than welcome to do that on the server.
Yeah, I'm more interested in like head-to-head debates, but the thing that I'm most comfortable debating is abortion. Like that's my main thing. But me and Kay, we stream every Wednesday, and then like at the end of our shows, we have like a open show where like a bunch of other people jump in and come talk. So if you're interested, this Wednesday we'll be sending out a bunch of invites. I think Kobe might be coming on.
Yeah, let me know.
All right, man.
Sounds cool.
Appreciate it. Have a good night.
Okay. Yeah. We'll talk to you later.
All right, bye.